Look, I need you to pause everything you're doing right now and listen to what I'm about to share with you. This isn't another conspiracy theory. This isn't clickbait. And this definitely isn't something the financial establishment wants circulating on the internet. What's happening with silver right now is being deliberately kept quiet. And there's a specific reason why powerful institutions want to keep you in the dark about this. Silver has officially become the third most critical asset on the planet, not by market value, but by something far more important: actual necessity. And while you're being fed distractions and entertainment, there are people behind mahogany desks in Manhattan who are genuinely worried about what happens when the general public figures this out. I started this channel, Final Wealth Warning, for one specific purpose: to give you information before it becomes common knowledge. So right now, before you scroll past this video, hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. I'm being completely serious here. What I'm going to explain in the next few minutes could change how you think about money, security, and the future. The mainstream financial media will eventually cover this story, but by that time, the opportunity to position yourself advantageously will have already disappeared. So stay with me, because this gets more interesting with every minute. Now, let me explain something that most people completely misunderstand about assets. When you think about the biggest assets in the world, your mind probably goes straight to stocks, maybe real estate, possibly gold. That's exactly what you've been programmed to think. But here's what they don't teach you in school or show you on financial news channels. The true importance of an asset isn't determined by its price tag or its market capitalization. It's determined by how essential it is to the functioning of modern civilization. It's about dependency. It's about what happens when that asset becomes scarce. And this is precisely where silver enters the conversation in a way that surprises even people who've been investing for decades. Silver isn't just another shiny metal that people collect. It's not simply a store of value like gold. Silver is the invisible foundation of almost everything you interact with in your daily life. Think about your smartphone that you're probably watching this on right now. There's silver in that device. Electric vehicles that everyone says are the future, they require significantly more silver than traditional cars. Solar panels that governments are pushing for green energy, absolutely dependent on silver. The massive data centers that power the internet, social media, and artificial intelligence, they can't function without silver. Military defense systems, silver. Medical equipment in hospitals, silver. The technology revolution that everyone keeps talking about, it literally cannot happen without silver. But here's the part that should genuinely concern you. Unlike other materials, silver doesn't get recycled efficiently. When silver gets used in electronics and industrial applications, it's basically gone forever. It gets embedded in tiny circuits, scattered across landfills, broken down into microscopic components that are economically impossible to recover. This isn't like melting down old gold jewelry. Once industrial silver is consumed, it's permanently removed from the available supply. And now we arrive at the crisis that nobody's talking about openly. Every single year, the world uses more silver than it produces. Read that sentence again and let it actually sink in. We're not dealing with a temporary shortage that'll resolve itself. We're experiencing a structural deficit that's getting worse, not better. And this is happening at the exact moment when global demand is exploding because of technological advancement. China understands this reality completely. Russia understands it. Central banks and government planners understand it. That's exactly why you're seeing quiet accumulation happening in the background. Physical silver is being pulled out of vaults. Inventories are vanishing. And the paper trading markets in the West are working overtime to keep prices artificially suppressed because they know what happens if panic sets in. The people on Wall Street aren't confused about what's happening. They're genuinely frightened. Because silver is exposing the fundamental lie that props up the entire modern financial system, which is this: price always equals value. The number you see when you check silver prices is largely a paper illusion. It's traded back and forth thousands of times without any actual physical metal changing hands. But the real economy, the one that builds things and powers things and manufactures things, doesn't operate on paper promises. It operates on physical resources. And silver is rapidly becoming the most critical bottleneck in the entire global supply chain. Let me put this in perspective for you. You cannot electrify the transportation system without silver. You cannot build out renewable energy infrastructure without silver. You cannot expand artificial intelligence capabilities without silver. You cannot modernize military technology without silver. And here's the kicker. You cannot replace silver with something cheaper or more abundant. Scientists have tried. There is no substitute material that conducts electricity and heat as efficiently as silver does. None. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. What happens when the most essential industrial material on the planet is priced as if it's common and plentiful, while in reality it's running out? This is the moment where Wall Street's control over the narrative begins to crumble. For generations, silver was dismissed as gold's less important younger sibling, undervalued, overlooked, even ridiculed by serious investors. But that storyline is falling apart right in front of us. Because here's the critical difference. Gold gets stored in vaults and bank basements. Silver gets consumed. Gold is about wealth preservation. Silver is about civilization functioning. And we've now reached a tipping point where these two realities are colliding. Industrial demand by itself is absorbing most of the world's silver supply. On top of that, investment demand is increasing. Government stockpiling is increasing. And at the same time, mining production is actually declining. There are fewer new silver discoveries being made. The cost of extracting silver from the ground is rising. Environmental regulations are getting stricter. This isn't a temporary market cycle that'll reverse next year. This is a permanent structural imbalance. And this is why people with inside information are quietly repositioning their wealth. No announcements, no media interviews, just deliberate action. While retail investors are arguing about technical chart patterns on social media, the physical silver market is showing clear signs of extreme stress. Premiums above spot price are climbing. Delivery delays are becoming common. Withdrawals from storage facilities are accelerating. These aren't characteristics of a healthy, balanced market. These are red alert warning signals. You're not seeing this covered on television for a very simple reason. If the general public truly understood silver's role in the modern world, the paper trading system would collapse immediately, because the moment confidence breaks, those paper contracts become worthless. Physical delivery becomes impossible, and prices would have to adjust to reality virtually overnight. This is exactly why silver is now being quietly acknowledged, albeit reluctantly, as one of the largest and most strategically important assets on Earth. Not because of its market capitalization, because of its necessity, because civilization as we know it cannot continue functioning without it. Now, pay close attention to what I'm about to say, because this is more important than anything else in this video. This isn't about making quick profits. This isn't about speculation or gambling. This is about preservation. This is about maintaining control over your own financial security in a system that is becoming increasingly fragile with each passing year. When currencies lose value, silver doesn't need anyone's permission to hold its worth. When financial markets freeze up, silver doesn't depend on liquidity or computer systems. When trust in institutions evaporates, silver doesn't require belief or faith. It simply exists as a tangible asset with real-world utility. And that's precisely why centralized systems find it threatening. We're entering an era where physical assets will outperform financial promises, where actual reality will override sophisticated financial engineering. And silver is positioned right at the center of this historic transition. If what I'm explaining is making sense to you, do me a favor and drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. Share this video with someone who still believes the current system is stable and sustainable. Because awareness spreads faster than wealth accumulation, and the people who understand these shifts early always have the advantage over those who wait for confirmation. Now let's discuss timing, because this might be the most crucial aspect of everything I've covered. Every major wealth transfer throughout human history has followed an identical pattern. First, there's suppression of information, then there's widespread denial, then comes sudden shock, and finally, rapid revaluation. We're currently still in the suppression phase. And that represents the opportunity window that most people completely miss because they're waiting for mainstream validation. Wall Street panic doesn't initially look like panic. It looks like calm. It looks like confidence. It looks like carefully worded statements saying everything is under control and functioning normally. Until suddenly, without warning, it isn't. When silver finally reprices to reflect actual supply and demand reality, it won't move gradually. It never does in these situations. It gaps dramatically. It shocks the market. And by that point, accessing physical silver becomes the primary problem, not the price. That's why sophisticated investors aren't waiting for CNBC to confirm what's happening. They're positioning themselves quietly, patiently, strategically, while the majority of people remain distracted by whatever controversy is trending on social media today. Final wealth warning exists specifically to wake you up from that distraction. If you've stayed with me through this entire explanation, you already understand something that most people don't. This isn't about numbers moving on a computer screen. This is about the fundamental foundation of the future economy, and silver is no longer an optional component of that economy. It's absolutely essential. So I want you to ask yourself this final question. When the world collectively realizes that silver isn't cheap, isn't plentiful, and isn't replaceable with alternatives, where do you want to be positioned? Do you want to be ahead of that realization, or scrambling to react after everyone else has figured it out? Because history doesn't reward people who react to obvious situations. History rewards those who prepare while others are distracted. Make absolutely sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that like button so this video reaches more people before it gets buried in the algorithm. Leave your thoughts in the comments section because I genuinely read every single one. And share this with someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's still sleepwalking through the biggest financial transformation of our generation. This has been your final wealth warning. Stay alert, stay informed, and stay ahead.